Marcus Thompson sat quietly in the corner of Café Laurent, watching his 7-year-old daughter Emma color in her notebook. The small French cafe in downtown Seattle had become their weekly tradition since the divorce 6 months ago. It was one of the few places where Marcus felt he could give Emma his full attention without worrying about work calls or bills piling up on his kitchen counter. Emma looked up from her drawing, her brown eyes sparkling with excitement. "Daddy, look, what I made for you." She held up a crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "That's us at the park last weekend." Marcus smiled, his heart warming despite the weight of his worries. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. We'll put it on the refrigerator when we get home." He glanced at his watch, calculating how much longer they could stay. The cafe wasn't expensive, but every dollar mattered now that he was raising Emma alone on his mechanic's salary. The peaceful moment was interrupted by the sharp click of expensive heels on the cafe's wooden floors. A woman in her early 30s entered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black business suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Her blonde hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, and she carried herself with the confidence that only came from never having to worry about money. Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, was having the worst day of her professional life. The merger she'd been working on for 8 months had fallen through that morning, costing her company millions. Her personal assistant had quit without notice, and her board meeting had been a disaster. She needed coffee, and she needed it now. Victoria approached the counter with quick, impatient steps. The teenage barista looked nervous as she placed her order. "Double espresso, extra shot, no foam, and make it fast. I have important calls to make." While waiting, Victoria's sharp eyes surveyed the cafe with obvious disdain. This wasn't her usual spot. Her driver had recommended it when her regular coffee shop was closed for renovations. The rustic decor and casual atmosphere clearly didn't meet her standards. Her gaze landed on Marcus and Emma's table. Marcus was wearing his work clothes, clean but clearly well-worn jeans and a simple flannel shirt. His hands showed the honest calluses of manual labor. Emma was completely absorbed in her coloring, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. "Excuse me?" Victoria said loudly, startling both father and daughter. She had approached their table while Marcus was helping Emma with a difficult word in her coloring book. "Is this seat taken?" She gestured to the empty chair at their small table. Marcus looked up, confused. The cafe had plenty of empty tables, including several that were larger and more suitable for someone who clearly needed to work. No, but there are other tables available if you need space to work." Victoria's expression hardened. She wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by someone she considered beneath her social status. "I prefer this spot. The lighting is better. For my laptop." It was a lie, but Victoria was accustomed to getting what she wanted through sheer force of will. "Of course," Marcus said quietly, not wanting to cause a scene in front of Emma. He began gathering their things. "Emma, let's move to that table over there." But Emma, who had been watching the interaction with the innocent curiosity of a child, spoke up. "Why can't she sit at one of the empty tables? We were here first." Victoria's perfectly manicured eyebrows rose in annoyance. She wasn't accustomed to being challenged by a child, and the day's frustrations were rapidly reaching a boiling point. "Perhaps your father should teach you some manners about respecting your betters." The words hung in the air like a slap. Marcus felt his face flush with anger, but he kept his voice steady for Emma's sake. "Come on, sweetheart, let's just move." But Victoria wasn't finished. The stress of her failed business deal and her general disdain for what she saw as the cafe's common clientele pushed her over the edge. "You know what's wrong with places like this?" she announced loudly enough for other patrons to hear. "They let just anyone in. Some people clearly don't belong in civilized establishments." Her voice carried across the now quiet cafe, and other customers began to stare. Marcus felt Emma shrink closer to his side, her coloring forgotten. The humiliation burned in his chest, but he was determined not to make the situation worse. "Look at you," Victoria continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "Bringing your child to a place like this dressed like you just crawled out of a garage. Some people need to learn their place in society. Not everyone is meant for nice things." elderly French owner of the Café, Monsieur Laurent, approached with concern written across his weathered face. He'd owned the café for 30 years and had never tolerated disrespect toward any of his customers. "Madame, please, this is not acceptable behavior in my establishment." Victoria whirled on him. "Don't lecture me about acceptable behavior. I probably spend more money in one day than this man makes in a month. I'm a CEO of a major corporation, not some blue-collar nobody who can't even afford proper clothes for his child." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, why is she being so mean?" Marcus knelt down to Emma's level, his heart breaking at the confusion and hurt in his daughter's eyes. "Some people are just having bad days, sweetheart. It's not about us." But Victoria wasn't done. Her phone had been buzzing constantly with calls from her office, and her frustration was reaching dangerous levels. "This is exactly what's wrong with this country. People who should be grateful for what little they have, acting like they deserve the same respect as those of us who actually contribute to society. You're a mechanic, aren't you? I can tell from your hands. Maybe stick to your garage and leave places like this to people who can actually afford them." The cafe had gone completely silent. Every customer was staring now, some looking shocked, others disgusted by Victoria's outburst. Marcus stood slowly, his jaw tight with controlled anger. He'd endured enough humiliation for one day, and more importantly, he wouldn't let Emma see her father accept this kind of treatment. "You're right about one thing," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying clearly in the silent cafe. "I am a mechanic. I work with my hands, and I'm proud of honest work. But what I do for a living doesn't determine my worth as a human being or my daughter's right to be treated with basic respect." Victoria's laugh was sharp and cold. "Spare me the working-class hero speech. The world needs mechanics, I suppose, but don't pretend we're equals. Some of us were meant for greater things." What Victoria didn't know was that her words were being recorded by another customer's phone, and that Marcus Thompson's story was about to take a turn that would shock everyone in that small French cafe, including the arrogant CEO who thought she had him all figured out. Marcus picked up Emma's coloring book and crayons with steady hands, though his heart was pounding with anger and humiliation. He'd dealt with difficult customers at the garage before, but never had anyone attacked his character so publicly or made his daughter cry with their cruelty. "We don't need to stay where we're not welcome," Marcus said calmly, taking Emma's small hand in his. "Let's go get ice cream instead." Victoria smirked triumphantly as she watched them gather their belongings. In her mind, she'd successfully asserted her superiority and gotten what she wanted. She pulled out her laptop and settled into the chair. Marcus had vacated, completely oblivious to the disgusted stares from other cafe patrons. But as Marcus reached the door with Emma, Monsieur Laurent caught up with them. The elderly Frenchman's face was red with anger and embarrassment on behalf of his customers. "Please, monsieur, do not leave because of this terrible woman," Laurent said urgently. "You and your beautiful daughter are always welcome in my cafe. What she did was inexcusable. I will ask her to leave immediately." Marcus shook his head gently. "Thank you, Monsieur Laurent, but I don't want Emma to see any more unpleasantness today. We'll come back next week for our usual Saturday visit." "But, Papa," Emma whispered, looking up at her father with wide eyes, "why didn't you tell her you're famous? Why didn't you tell her about your inventions?" Laurent's eyebrows rose with interest, but Marcus simply smiled and patted Emma's head. "Because who I am isn't determined by what other people think of me, sweetheart. Remember that." As they left the cafe, Emma chattering about the ice cream flavor she wanted to try, Marcus felt his phone buzzing in his pocket. He ignored it, focusing instead on his daughter's excited voice as they walked down the sidewalk. But the phone kept ringing. Inside the cafe, Victoria was attempting to focus on her laptop, but the hostile atmosphere was making it difficult to concentrate. Other customers were whispering and pointing, and she could feel their disapproval, like a weight on her shoulders. She tried to dismiss their reactions, telling herself they simply didn't understand the realities of business and social hierarchies. Her assistant's replacement called for the third time in 10 minutes. "Ms. Sterling, I've been trying to reach you. There's been a development with the Patterson Industries situation. They want to schedule a meeting for Monday morning." Victoria's mood brightened slightly. Patterson Industries was a major manufacturing company that had been considering Sterling Industries as a partner for their new automated systems division. Landing their account would more than make up for the morning's failed merger. Excellent. Schedule it for first thing Monday. I want our full presentation team ready. She paused, then added, and find out everything you can about their decision makers. I want to know what matters to them. Meanwhile, across town in a small but comfortable house, Marcus was helping Emma hang her new drawing on the refrigerator. The kitchen was modest but warm, filled with Emma's artwork and photos of their adventures together. Marcus had been careful to create a stable, loving environment for his daughter after the divorce, even though money was often tight. Emma's questions about the cafe incident continued over dinner. Daddy, why was that lady so mean to us? And why didn't you tell her about your smart inventions? Marcus smiled patiently. His daughter didn't fully understand the complexity of his situation, and he preferred to keep it that way for now. Sometimes, people have bad days and say things they shouldn't. It's not about us, Emma. And as for my inventions, well, they're not really important to most people. What Emma knew, but Victoria Sterling did not, was that Marcus Thompson held 17 patents for automotive innovations that had revolutionized modern engine efficiency. His mechanical expertise had led to breakthrough designs that were now being used by major car manufacturers worldwide. The royalties from these patents provided a substantial income that Marcus preferred to keep private. After his messy divorce from Emma's mother, who had left him for a wealthy lawyer, Marcus had made a conscious decision to live simply. He continued, working as a mechanic not because he needed the money, but because he loved the work and wanted Emma to understand the value of honest labor. The modest house, the simple clothes, the careful budgeting, it was all part of his effort to give his daughter a grounded upbringing away from the materialism that had destroyed his marriage. His phone rang again while he was tucking Emma into bed. This time he answered, recognizing the number of his patent attorney. Marcus, I've been trying to reach you all day, came the excited voice of David Chen. I have incredible news about the Thompson engine management system. Ford wants to expand their licensing agreement, and Tesla is interested in adapting your designs for their new line. We're talking about a deal that could be worth $50 million over the next 5 years. Marcus stepped out of Emma's room and closed the door gently before responding. That's great news, David, but let's discuss it Monday. I'm with Emma tonight. Marcus, you realize this could change everything for you? You could retire tomorrow and never work another day in your life if you wanted to. I know, David. But some things are more important than money. My work keeps me grounded, and it's important for Emma to see me living a normal life. After ending the call, Marcus sat in his living room, looking at the photos on the mantelpiece. Pictures of him and Emma at the park, at baseball games, camping trips, and quiet moments at home. This was the life he'd chosen, simple, honest, and focused on what truly mattered. He thought about Victoria Sterling's cruel words and her assumptions about his worth based on his appearance and job. Tomorrow was Sunday, and he'd planned to take Emma to the Children's Science Museum. Maybe they'd stop by the cafe afterward for their usual hot chocolate, if Emma felt up to it. What Marcus didn't know was that one of the cafe customers had recorded Victoria's entire outburst on their phone. The video was already making its way across social media platforms with the caption, entitled CEO Humiliates Single Father and Child in Café. By morning, it would have thousands of views and comments from outraged viewers. And Victoria Sterling, who prided herself on controlling her public image and business reputation, was about to learn that some consequences can't be managed away with money and corporate power. The weekend would pass peacefully for Marcus and Emma, filled with museum visits, playground adventures, and quiet moments reading together. But Monday morning would bring surprises that would forever change both their lives and Victoria's carefully constructed world. Marcus fell asleep that night holding Emma's latest drawing, the one she'd made at the cafe before Victoria's interruption. In it, 2 stick figures stood under a rainbow, holding hands and smiling. At the bottom, in Emma's careful 7-year-old handwriting, were the words, "Me and Daddy, best friends forever." Neither Marcus nor Victoria could have imagined how dramatically their paths would cross again, or how the events set in motion by a moment of cruelty in a small French cafe would reshape everything they thought they knew about success, respect, and the true meaning of worth. Sunday morning arrived with autumn sunshine streaming through Emma's bedroom window. Marcus woke to the sound of his daughter humming in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. He found her standing on a chair, carefully spreading peanut butter on toast with intense concentration. "Good morning, Chef," Marcus said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "This looks delicious." Emma giggled, leaning back into her father's embrace. "I wanted to make you breakfast because you take such good care of me. Mrs. Peterson next door says that's what families do for each other." Marcus felt his heart swell with pride and love. Despite yesterday's unpleasant encounter, Emma remained the bright, caring child he was so grateful to call his daughter. They ate breakfast together, discussing their plans for the Science Museum and Emma's excitement about the new dinosaur exhibit. Meanwhile, across town, Victoria Sterling was discovering that her weekend was not going according to plan. She woke to 17 missed calls from her public relations manager, 34 text messages, and an email inbox filled with urgent notifications from her social media monitoring service. "What the hell?" she muttered, reaching for her phone. The first call she returned was to Jennifer Walsh, her PR manager. "Victoria, thank God you're finally answering." Jennifer's voice was tight with panic. "We have a serious situation. There's a video of you from yesterday that's gone viral. It's all over social media, and the comments are not good." Victoria sat up in her expensive silk pajamas, confusion clouding her mind. "What video? What are you talking about?" "The cafe incident. Someone recorded your confrontation with that man and his daughter. It's been viewed over 2 million times since last night, and major news outlets are picking it up. The hashtag Café Bully is trending." Victoria's blood ran cold as the implications hit her. She pulled up social media on her laptop while Jennifer continued talking, and her stomach dropped as she watched herself on screen, looking every bit the cruel, elitist bully the internet was now calling her. The comments were brutal. Thousands of people were sharing their own stories of workplace bullying, class discrimination, and corporate arrogance. Others were praising the quiet dignity of the father who'd refused to engage in her toxic behavior. Several comments mentioned attempts to identify the humble mechanic to thank him for his grace under pressure. "Jennifer, we need to control this narrative immediately," Victoria said, her CEO instincts kicking in despite her growing panic. "Get our legal team involved. Can we claim invasion of privacy? Get the video taken down?" "Victoria, that will only make it worse. The Streisand effect is real. Trying to suppress this will just bring more attention to it. We need a different strategy." But Victoria wasn't listening. She was scrolling through more comments, each one feeling like a personal attack on everything she'd worked to build. Her company's official social media accounts were being flooded with angry messages from potential customers threatening boycotts. At the Science Museum, Marcus and Emma were having the perfect father-daughter day. Emma was fascinated by the interactive exhibits, and Marcus enjoyed watching her curiosity and excitement as she learned about everything from space exploration to marine biology. "Daddy, look at this," Emma called from the invention station, where children could build simple machines. "I made a pulley system just like the one you showed me in your workshop." Marcus admired her creation, remembering the countless hours he'd spent in his own workshop as a child, taking apart and rebuilding anything mechanical he could get his hands on. Those early experiments had led to his first patent at age 22, and eventually to the breakthrough innovations that had made him wealthy. His phone buzzed with another call from David Chen, his patent attorney. This time, Marcus stepped aside to answer, sensing the urgency in David's repeated attempts to reach him. "Marcus, I hate to bother you on a Sunday, but something extraordinary has happened. Have you been online today? There's a video of some incident at a cafe that people are saying involves you." Marcus frowned, watching Emma explore the geology exhibit nearby. "I haven't been online. What kind of video?" "Someone recorded an incident where a businesswoman was extremely rude to a man and his daughter. The internet is trying to identify the man to thank him for his dignity. Several people have mentioned that he appeared to be a mechanic, and given that you mentioned the cafe incident yesterday, I wondered if it might be you. It probably is, Marcus admitted. A woman was very unpleasant to Emma and me yesterday at Café Laurent, but I don't understand why anyone would care about that. Marcus, this video has millions of views. More importantly, there are some very influential people sharing it and commenting on it. If you are the father in the video, this could actually be a positive thing for your reputation and your business interests. After ending the call, Marcus felt a mixture of concern and curiosity. He didn't want Emma exposed to any negativity, but he was intrigued by the idea that their dignity in the face of cruelty had resonated with so many people. By Sunday evening, Victoria's crisis management team had assembled for an emergency meeting. Her apartment, usually a sanctuary of minimalist luxury, felt like a war room as publicists, lawyers, and image consultants discussed damage control strategies. The consensus is clear, Jennifer explained, presenting social media analytics on her tablet. Your approval rating has plummeted. Sterling Industries' stock price dropped 3% in after-hours trading on Friday, and we expect it to fall further tomorrow when markets open. Several clients are reconsidering their contracts. Victoria paced her living room, designer heels clicking on marble floors. This is ridiculous. One bad moment, one interaction with some random nobody, and suddenly my entire career is in jeopardy. Victoria, said Thomas Mitchell, her head legal counsel, the video shows you at your absolute worst. You attacked a man's character based on his appearance, you made his child cry, and you did it all with a level of arrogance that plays directly into every negative stereotype people have about corporate executives. But we don't even know who he is, Victoria protested. For all we know, he could be some deadbeat father who actually deserved what I said. Jennifer shook her head grimly. That's exactly the wrong attitude. The internet is actively trying to identify this man so they can praise him publicly. When they do, if he turns out to be as sympathetic as he appears in the video, it will make you look even worse. What do you suggest? Victoria asked, though she dreaded the answer. Full public apology, Jennifer said firmly. Immediate, charitable, donations to organizations that support working families. Maybe some kind of volunteer work with underprivileged children. We need to completely reshape your public image. Victoria's first instinct was to refuse. She'd built her career on projecting strength and superiority, never showing weakness or admitting mistakes. But as she looked at the continued stream of negative comments and news articles, she realized that her usual tactics weren't going to work this time. Fine, she said reluctantly. Draft something. But I want to control the message. What Victoria didn't realize was that across town, Marcus Thompson was making his own decision about how to handle the unexpected attention. After putting Emma to bed, he'd finally looked up the video and read some of the comments. The overwhelming support from strangers had touched him deeply, but more importantly, he'd realized that this might be an opportunity to teach Emma an important lesson about character and dignity. Tomorrow, both Victoria and Marcus would face a world that had been watching their interaction and forming judgments about their character. Neither of them knew that their paths were about to cross again in a way that would surprise everyone, including themselves. The video continued spreading throughout Sunday night, shared by celebrities, politicians, and millions of ordinary people who saw in Marcus Thompson's quiet strength something admirable and increasingly rare in a world that often rewarded cruelty and selfishness over kindness and dignity. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that usually lifted Victoria Sterling's spirits. Today, however, she felt like she was preparing for battle as she dressed in her most authoritative business suit. Her reflection in the mirror showed a composed, powerful executive, but inside, anxiety gnawed at her confidence. The ride to her office in downtown Seattle felt longer than usual. Her driver, Robert, who had worked for her for 3 years, was unusually quiet. Victoria wondered if he'd seen the video too, but she was too proud to ask. The silence in the luxury sedan felt heavy with unspoken judgment. Sterling Industries occupied 15 floors of a gleaming glass tower, and Victoria normally felt a surge of pride walking through the marble lobby. Today, however, she noticed the way employees' conversations seemed to stop when they saw her. The usual respectful greetings felt forced and uncomfortable. Jennifer Walsh was waiting in Victoria's office with a stack of newspapers and a tablet full of online coverage. The headlines were brutal. CEO's Café cruelty goes viral. When privilege attacks, executive humiliates working father, and Sterling Industries boss shows her true colors. "It's worse than we thought," Jennifer said without preamble. 3. Major clients have requested meetings to discuss their ongoing relationships with Sterling Industries. The Patterson Industries meeting has been postponed indefinitely. And there's something else. Victoria sank into her leather chair, feeling the weight of her empire potentially crumbling. What else could possibly go wrong? The man from the video, people are close to identifying him. There are several social media groups dedicated to finding him so they can thank him publicly. When they do, and when his story comes out, it could make your situation much worse. How could it get worse? He's a mechanic with a kid. What story could he possibly have? Jennifer pulled up her tablet. That's just it, Victoria. What if he's not just a mechanic? What if there's more to him than meets the eye? Your assumptions about people based on their appearance are exactly what got you into this mess. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus was dropping Emma off at school, blissfully unaware of the internet detective work being conducted to identify him. Emma skipped happily toward her classroom, completely recovered from Saturday's unpleasantness and excited about a science project she was working on. "Have a wonderful day, sweetheart," Marcus called after her. "I'll pick you up at 3:30. At Thompson's Auto Repair, Marcus's small but well-respected garage, his assistant manager Jake was waiting with a strange expression on his face. "Boss, you need to see this," Jake said, holding up his phone. "Someone posted a video from that cafe thing you mentioned. It's gone crazy viral, and people are trying to figure out who you are." Marcus watched the video with growing discomfort. Seeing his and Emma's humiliation replayed for millions of strangers felt invasive and uncomfortable. But as he read some of the supportive comments, he began to understand why Jake looked excited rather than concerned. "Marcus, you look like a hero in this thing," Jake continued. "People are praising how you handled that witch. And they're curious about you, really curious. Some of them are starting to dig into who you might be." "That's what I'm afraid of," Marcus murmured. He'd worked hard to keep his professional success separate from his personal life, but if internet investigators were involved, his privacy wouldn't last long. His phone rang, and David Chen's voice was more excited than Marcus had ever heard it. "Marcus, you need to get down to my office right away. The Ford and Tesla deals I mentioned, they're not the only ones interested anymore. 3 more major manufacturers called this morning after their executives saw the video. They want to meet the dignified mechanic who's captured the internet's heart. David, I don't want my business dealings connected to this circus. Marcus, listen to me. Sometimes the universe hands you a perfect storm of opportunity. Your innovations speak for themselves, but now you have a public platform that could amplify your influence in ways we never imagined. The automotive industry respects integrity and character, and you've just demonstrated both on a global stage." At Sterling Industries, Victoria was struggling through the most difficult board meeting of her career. The 12 board members, usually deferential to her leadership, were asking hard questions about the company's public image and her judgment. "Victoria, we've built Sterling Industries on a reputation for innovation and ethical leadership," said board chairman Robert Sterling, Victoria's own uncle who had given her the opportunity to prove herself in the family business. "This incident raises serious questions about whether you represent our corporate values." "It was one bad moment," Victoria protested. "One interaction that got blown out of proportion by social media." "But it wasn't just the interaction," interrupted board member Sarah Martinez, a respected businesswoman who had mentored Victoria early in her career. "It was your attitude, your assumptions about people, your complete lack of empathy. These aren't momentary lapses. They reveal something about your character." Victoria felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crack. These people had believed in her, invested in her leadership, and now she could see doubt creeping into their eyes. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, hating how defeated she sounded. "Make it right," Uncle Robert said firmly. "Whatever that takes, however long it takes, make it right. The company's reputation is bigger than any one person, including you." The meeting ended with Victoria feeling more isolated than she'd ever been in her professional life. As board members filed out, avoiding eye contact, she realized that her arrogance had cost her something precious, the respect of people she genuinely cared about. Later that afternoon, as Marcus was picking up Emma from school, his phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Is this Marcus Thompson?" asked a professional-sounding woman's voice. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Rebecca Martinez from Channel 7 News. Mr. Thompson, we believe you may be the father from the viral Café video, and we'd like to offer you an opportunity to tell your side of the story." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The attention he'd been dreading was finally arriving. "I'm not interested in publicity." "Thank you, but no." "Mr. Thompson, with respect, the story is going to be told with or without your participation. We've had several tips identifying you, and we're planning to run a segment tonight. Wouldn't you prefer to have some control over the narrative?" After hanging up, Marcus sat in his car outside Emma's school, watching his daughter play on the playground with her friends. Their simple, quiet life was about to change dramatically, and he wasn't sure they were ready for it. What Marcus didn't know was that Victoria Sterling had just made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. After hours of crisis meetings and damage control strategies, she had decided to take a different approach, one that would require more courage than any business deal she'd ever negotiated. The collision course between the humble mechanic and the humbled CEO was about to reach its climactic moment, but neither of them realized that their second meeting would be completely different from their first, and that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most profound changes in our lives. By Tuesday morning, Marcus Thompson's identity was no longer a secret. An investigative blogger named Sarah Kim had connected the dots between the Café video, Thompson's auto repair, and public patent records. Her article, titled "The Mechanic Millionaire: The Shocking Truth About Café Dad," had exploded across the internet overnight. Marcus woke to find news vans parked outside his modest home and reporters camping on his front lawn. Emma peered through the bedroom curtains with wide eyes, confused by all the commotion. "Daddy, why are all these people here? Are we in trouble?" Marcus pulled her close, his mind racing. The article had revealed everything. His 17 patents, his estimated net worth of over $40 million, his breakthrough innovations that had revolutionized fuel efficiency in modern vehicles. The internet was buzzing with amazement at the contrast between his wealth and his humble lifestyle. "We're not in trouble, sweetheart. Some people are just very curious about our family, but we don't have to talk to anyone we don't want to." His phone had been ringing constantly since 5 in the morning. David Chen had called 3 times, various news outlets wanted interviews, and several automotive executives were requesting immediate meetings. The quiet life Marcus had carefully constructed was unraveling by the hour. At Sterling Industries, Victoria was dealing with her own media storm. The revelation that she had humiliated a multimillionaire inventor had added new layers to the public's outrage. Social media was filled with comments about how her behavior revealed the ugly truth about corporate elites who judge people based on appearance and social status. "This is a disaster beyond anything we anticipated," Jennifer Walsh said, pacing Victoria's office while reading from her tablet. "The narrative has shifted from mean CEO bullies working dad to arrogant executive attacks genius inventor. People are calling you everything from classist to completely out of touch with reality." Victoria stared out her office window at the city below, feeling smaller than she ever had despite being on the 20th floor. "How was I supposed to know who he was? He was dressed like any other blue-collar worker." "That's exactly the problem, Victoria." Jennifer's professional composure finally cracked. "You shouldn't need to know someone's net worth to treat them with basic human decency. The fact that you're more embarrassed about attacking a rich man than you were about humiliating someone you thought was poor Proves everything people are saying about you. The words hit Victoria like a slap. She turned from the window to find Jennifer staring at her with a mixture of disappointment and frustration that reminded Victoria painfully of the expression on Uncle Robert's face during yesterday's board meeting. "I know you're a good person deep down, Victoria," Jennifer continued more gently. "I've seen you make charitable donations and support worthy causes, but somewhere along the way, you started believing that your success made you better than other people. This situation is giving you a chance to remember who you really are." Meanwhile, Marcus had managed to sneak out of his house through the backyard and was now sitting in David Chen's office, trying to process the surreal turn his life had taken. "Marcus, I've been in this business for 20 years and I've never seen anything like this," David said, gesturing to a stack of offers and opportunities that had arrived in just the past 24 hours. "You have 3 major television shows requesting interviews, 2 book publishers wanting to discuss autobiography deals, and 7 automotive companies that want to accelerate their licensing agreements with you. I don't want any of this, David. I just want to go back to my normal life with Emma. I understand, but I don't think that's possible anymore. The story is out there, and it's bigger than just you now. People are inspired by you, Marcus. They see someone who achieved incredible success but stayed grounded and humble. In a world full of flashy billionaires and corporate corruption, you represent something authentic." Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling overwhelmed. "What about Emma? She didn't sign up for this kind of attention. We can control how much exposure she gets. But Marcus, think about the positive impact you could have. You've already shown millions of people that success doesn't have to change your character. That's a powerful message." That afternoon, Victoria made a decision that shocked her entire crisis management team. Instead of crafting another carefully worded, the video of Victoria's sincere apology at Marcus's garage went viral within hours of Jake posting it online. But this time, the internet's response was completely different. Instead of outrage and condemnation, people were sharing the video, with comments about redemption, second chances, and the power of genuine remorse. Marcus discovered the video's existence Thursday morning, when David Chen called with excitement in his voice. "Marcus, you need to see this. Your employee posted the conversation with Sterling, and people are calling it one of the most authentic examples of accountability they've ever seen from a corporate executive." Jake posted what? Marcus felt a familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. "I need to talk to him." But when Marcus arrived at the garage, Jake was ready with his explanation. "Boss, I know you value privacy, but what happened yesterday was too important to keep quiet. People need to see that real change is possible. Ms. Sterling wasn't performing for cameras. She was genuinely trying to make things right." Marcus watched the video on Jake's phone, seeing the conversation from an outside perspective. Victoria's vulnerability and his own grace in accepting her apology created a powerful narrative about human decency overcoming initial conflict. "The comments are incredible," Jake continued, scrolling through hundreds of responses. "People are talking about how both of you handled this situation with such class. And look at this. Sterling Industries' stock price actually went up yesterday afternoon after people saw the video." Meanwhile, Victoria was experiencing the strangest week of her professional life. The second video had transformed public perception of her from a heartless villain to a flawed human being capable of growth and change. Her office phone was ringing with interview requests, but these were different from the hostile media attention she'd received earlier. "Victoria, this is unprecedented," Jennifer Walsh said, reviewing the latest social media analytics. "Your approval ratings have not only recovered but exceeded where they were before the first video. People are responding to your authenticity and willingness to be vulnerable." "I wasn't trying to be authentic for the cameras," Victoria replied, still processing the surreal turn of events. "I just needed to apologize to that man and his daughter. That's exactly why it worked. People can tell the difference between a corporate apology and genuine remorse. You gave them something real." The career day at Emma's elementary school was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Victoria had spent the weekend preparing not a polished presentation, but honest reflections on her journey from success to failure to potential redemption. Emma had been excited about Ms. Sterling's visit ever since Marcus told her about the invitation. Daddy, is she the lady who was mean to us at the cafe? But she's not mean anymore. People can change, sweetheart, Marcus explained. Sometimes making mistakes helps us become better than we were before. When Tuesday arrived, Victoria stood outside Maple Elementary School feeling more nervous than she'd ever been before a business presentation. She'd spoken to boards of directors, major investors, and hostile shareholders, but the prospect of talking to a classroom of 7-year-olds about making mistakes and learning from them felt far more daunting. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, greeted Victoria warmly. Ms. Sterling, we're so grateful you could join us today. The children are very excited to meet you. Victoria entered the bright, cheerful classroom where 25 second graders sat in a circle on a colorful carpet. Emma waved enthusiastically from her spot near the front, her earlier fear completely replaced by curiosity and excitement. Good morning, everyone, Victoria began, settling cross-legged on the carpet in a way that would have been unimaginable in her corporate boardroom. My name is Victoria, and I'm here to tell you about my job, but also about some important mistakes I made and what I learned from them. For the next 30 minutes, Victoria shared her story in language the children could understand. She talked about working hard to build a successful company, but also about how success had made her forget to be kind to people. She told them about meeting Emma and her daddy at the cafe, and how her mean words had hurt their feelings. Sometimes when we're upset about other things, we might say mean words to people who don't deserve it, Victoria explained. But saying sorry isn't enough. We have to show people we've learned to be better. One brave little boy raised his hand. Did you and Emma's daddy become friends after you said sorry? Victoria looked at Emma, who was listening with rapt attention. We're learning to be friends. Sometimes that takes time, but it's worth the effort. After the presentation, Emma approached Victoria with a drawing she'd made during art time. It showed 2 stick figures shaking hands under a rainbow, with the words "Friends can start over" written in careful 7-year-old handwriting. This is for you, Miss Victoria, Emma said shyly. Daddy says everyone deserves a second chance if they really mean it when they say sorry. Victoria felt tears threatening as she accepted the drawing. Thank you, Emma. This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. Later that evening, Marcus and Victoria found themselves back at Café Laurent, sitting at the same table where their confrontation had begun 2 weeks earlier. Monsieur Laurent had insisted they come as his guests, delighted by the transformation their story represented. I've been thinking about what you said, Victoria told Marcus over coffee, about how real strength comes from lifting others up. I want to start a foundation focused on supporting working families and small business owners. Would you consider being on the advisory board? Marcus smiled, stirring sugar into his coffee. I'd be honored, but I have a condition. What's that? Emma gets to help design the programs for children. She has some very clear ideas about fairness and kindness that I think could guide our work. Victoria laughed, a sound that was becoming more genuine and less calculated with each passing day. Deal. Though I should warn you, she's a tough negotiator. She made me promise to always be nice to people, even when I'm having a bad day. Especially when you're having a bad day, Marcus corrected gently. As they talked about plans for the foundation and the lessons they'd both learned from their unexpected journey, other cafe patrons occasionally recognized them from the viral videos. But instead of stares or whispered comments, people approached to thank them for showing that conflict could lead to understanding, and that public figures could model genuine accountability. 6 months later, the Sterling Thompson Foundation had awarded its first grants to support education programs for children of working families. Victoria had restructured her leadership style at Sterling Industries, implementing policies that prioritized employee dignity alongside corporate profits. Marcus continued working at his garage while overseeing the foundation's technical education initiatives. Emma, now 8, had become something of a celebrity at school for her role in what teachers called the Café miracle. But she remained grounded in the values her father had taught her, treating everyone with the kindness and respect that had ultimately transformed 2 adults' understanding of what it meant to be successful. The viral videos that had started with cruelty and humiliation had evolved into a story about redemption, second chances, and the possibility that our worst moments can become catalysts for our best selves. Marcus and Victoria's friendship proved that sometimes the most unlikely people can teach each other the most important lessons about character, compassion, and the true meaning of strength. And in a small French cafe in Seattle, Monsieur Laurent kept Emma's original drawing framed on the wall next to the table where it all began. A reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's always the possibility of light, understanding, and the chance to begin again.